how to actually reinvent yourself without losing yourself.
Start again and rebuild, but this time rebuild on a more solid foundation.
This current version of myself isn't in line with my plan, isn't in line with sort of my big vision.
It can get really, really messy.
And be consistent and start small.
There's a lot to it.
Welcome back, baby, to the best flipping show on YouTube. Mm-hmm. Not even in YouTube, in the world, in the universe, in the ether.
Yes.
And I'm talking about the Unplug Podcast.
We are here, baby. Episode 27.
If you're joining us for the first time, guys, you're in luck because we are all about helping you unplug from the matrix so you can live life on your own terms.
Indeed, we are for the entrepreneurs, the dreamers,
Tell them again,
the believers,
scream it from the rooftop,
and those ready to unplug from societal norms and go to the next level. But guys, today, this one's a special one. This episode's personal. Why? It's about the version of you that's evolving and the version of you that's scared of what might be, what could be, but more importantly, what should be.
110%. And if you're in that pivot right now, in terms of understanding the identity within yourself and your business, this episode is literally like talking to yourself in the mirror, where we're going to unlock and debunk so many different things when it comes to reinventing yourself and making sure you are the highest version.
Yes, love that. Let's go.
Let's get straight into it. I know you guys have been loving the Would You Rathers, so I got something juicy for you guys.
Would you rather? Popping off.
Let's go. So cool for today. I stole this from someone, so I'll give you a shout out in a sec. Be patient. Be patient, bruv. So cool. You have 1,000 grapes. Every one you eat, you make £50,000. But out of those 1,000 grapes, one of them is poison. How many are you eating?
None.
Really?
Bruv, the first grape I eat could be poison. I'll die, bro.
Bruv, that's like, what's them odds? That's like...
Yeah, but I'm not prepared to take that risk.
So it says you're going surgery, you got 99% chances.
No, but that's different.
How's that different?
That's different because that's saving my life. This is putting my life at risk. There's a big difference, bro. Yeah,
straight.
I'm not putting my life at risk for money, bro.
Straight.
No, not my life. No. Bruv, that first one you take could be poison.
Yeah. But that first one at the same time you eat could be 50 bags.
Yeah, I know, but...
And then you could eat another, that's 100. I'm saying you eat 10 grapes out of 1,000, bruv. That's not even 1%. That's 1%, right? My maths is right.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah, about 1%. 10 grapes, half a mil. Cool. Pack the rest away, go home by your day. Mate, I made about half a mil. What'd you do eating grapes?
No, doesn't really appeal to me. No, I'll be real, bro.
When you're rich, guys, you know?
No, not even. But I just...
rich.
For me, I don't believe putting your life at risk to make money. Like, there are other ways to make money without putting your life at risk. Maybe your mental health at risk. That's a whole nother episode.
Yeah,
but
true.
I'm not going to potentially do something knowing there is a possibility. It might just be my day where I get bad luck and all of a sudden now, the one grape I've had, I'm dead. Or I'm poisoned.
True.
Do you get me? So,
cool.
Yeah, no.
Well,
keep your grapes, man.
I was going to say, that made me feel like quite an idiot. I thought I was a banger. But yeah, that shout out at Drillings. But guys, please let us know how many grapes you would eat. Me personally, I'm going to try young at 10. 10 grapes. I'll chance it, bro.
Why though?
Because, bro, you could eat anything and die anyway. Yeah,
but knowing that there's a potential poisonous grape is different to knowing whatever you eat could make you ill, bro. Cool. Guys, I just want to say before you tap out, if you are stuck between where you are and where you want to be, what we're about to talk about, this one could be just for you.
And guys, this isn't all just talk, right? We are talking about how you can consistently reinvent yourself and talk you through the exact frameworks that John and I have used to be able to do so. There's been so many different versions of Freeman, and you can reinvent yourself without actually losing yourself. So make sure you stay with us.
Reinvention sounds sexy on Instagram, you know. In real life, it's messy. You outgrow friends, you change habits, or you have to develop new habits, you have to change mindsets. It's not easy. You start to feel, you know, you're an imposter. It can get really, really messy.
110%. And especially, no one talks about the grief that comes after when it comes to reinventing yourself. People thinking, oh, you're acting brand new, Freeman. Oh, it's just you. You've got the quarter zips now. You're working in the city, etc., etc., etc. So we're going to deal with all of that and we're going to get straight into it. But I think the first question I probably want to ask, and I feel like there are a lot of, sort of our listeners who are on this journey, whether perhaps, they're starting a new business, they need to become more disciplined, they're, trying to diet, eat more healthy, or trying to go into the gym, and they're effectively reinventing themselves to, again, as I always say, become the highest version of themselves. But I'll probably say, personally for you, my bro, what would you say was the earliest time that you felt like you had to reinvent yourself? Like clear?
I think just before or just after sort of COVID.
Okay.
Yeah, COVID hit.
Not too long ago.
Not too long ago. I mean, I've had a lot of reinventions over my time. And I always used to think it was a bad thing that you're reinventing yourself. It kind of makes you feel like the old version wasn't good enough. But yeah, unfortunately, if you try certain things and things don't work out, or you just feel kind of a bit stifled, it's a sign that you kind of do need to reinvent yourself. And I just think, just after COVID, I was at a place I just felt a bit stuck. I felt a bit stagnant. Nothing weren't really going on. I didn't really feel like I was doing much with my life. And I decided, you know what, something needed to give, something needed to happen. And I went soul searching, man, went looking. Okay,
no, I'm completely with you. I think for myself as well, I'll probably say it's, and I spoke about this on the pod as well when I sort of had one of my first few mentors, and he sort of helped me, no pun intended, unplug from that sort of fantasy bubble I was living in, where I thought my life was great, everything was hunky-dory, and I just had to put things into perspective with me. And I was on this whole new journey where I had to change myself, I had to change my mentality, what I was doing, and effectively what I was focusing on. But sort of bringing it back to the people, right, and sort of like, again, guiding them, like talking about like relatable conflicts, right? What would you say are some of the relatable conflicts that, people would have on this journey of reinvention?
Just the unknown. Like, it's very scary to now step out of who you are to try and be somebody who you're not. I think I mentioned it on the previous episode that in order to achieve things that you don't have right now or you haven't achieved, you have to become someone who you're not. And that's scary. That's the unknown. That's uncomfortable. That is anxiety. That is being nervous. That is friends and family members doubting what you're doing, who you are, losing friends. There's a lot to it. But, you got to be prepared to, my big thing is that if you're reinventing yourself for a reason, right? And that reason has to be big enough and drive the change.
Yes.
Because if it's not big enough, then it won't drive the change. And if that reason is big enough, then ultimately it doesn't really matter what people say, what people think, what people do. You just got to kind of live your own life.
No, 100%. And I even feel as well, like, guys, you probably will feel, in addition sort of like relatable or conflict you may find is also like a loss of momentum. Because sometimes you may just be, acting, Freeman 1.0 for so long. You're like, actually, no, this current version of myself isn't in line with my plan, isn't in line with sort of my big vision or where I need to be. So you feel like, flipping, I've been doing this all the way up until June. Now I need to pivot, like flipping out. What about all the work I've done from Jan to June? Right? So I know there's also a fear of like a loss of momentum, but again, like this is all part of the journey. This is all part of the process. And again, we mentioned this a few episodes, is growing pains, right? The person you are today isn't ready, right? Isn't physically ready for what you're about to achieve. And what you're about to achieve, that's a new person. That's a new individual. They're not, built in this current environment. So the growing pains, the discomfort, the feeling of the unknown that John just sort of talked about, and the loss of momentum is all sort of part of that journey when it comes to actually trying to reinvent yourself. Yeah, now there is a fear from like starting from ground zero, but like we know, sometimes you got to knock down, start again and rebuild, but this time rebuild on a more solid foundation. Like a lot of us are going through life, but our foundation's not really strong. Like we thought it was strong, but it's not. And it's like now we realize we want more from life. You want more from life, but you have to start from zero. And don't be scared of that. Like it's just a part of the journey of, what's that saying? Sometimes you got to go backwards to go forwards. So you have to start from zero. We've started from zero many times.
But what I would say is that when you start from zero, you're now starting with experience. You're starting with more knowledge, more, just wisdom, more tenacity, more perseverance. You have to start again from zero to rebuild back stronger.
110%. And even actually within that, there might be an element of imposter syndrome as well, right?
Always is.
During the pivot, you might feel like, this isn't who I am. I don't deserve to be here. I shouldn't be doing what needs to be done. There isn't a lot of people that sound like me, that look like me, that are doing what I'm setting out to achieve, right? But that's something that you need to completely eradicate. And you are here for a reason. And this journey and this purpose of reinventing yourself, as John said, it's all part of the big vision. It's all part of the big goal. And the reason why the vision and the goal needs to be so important and you need to be so stuck on it, it's going to be your ultimate driver. And if your goal and your vision isn't bigger than yourself, it needs to be, a lot of the time, a lot of our goals are for our families or for our loved ones, to change our current circumstances, the climate that we're currently living in. Like, if your goal is self-sacrificing, I find, if it's bigger than you, like say if you're doing this for your family, like you're not doing this for yourself. It's not selfish. It's very selfless. So there's a further drive, there's further momentum as to doing what you need to do. And I feel like a big, massive insight as well when it comes to this is that reinvention isn't a glow up. It's a breakdown that leads to break free, right? And with that, you need to understand that there's going to be hardships, there's going to be struggles, there's going to be hiccups, there's going to be pitfalls. But again, it's all part of the journey when it comes to actually transitioning and almost like a butterfly and blossoming into something beautiful, right?
I was going to say, like, if we can kind of just give some backstories or stories from a time where we've had to reinvent ourselves and how that was and how we were able to kind of push through that whole reinvention. Because like we said, reinvention is scary, guys, but it is necessary to go to the next level. It's necessary to achieve the things that we've not achieved and push through. Ultimately, you are where you are because of how you are. So to level up now, it's almost like we got to destroy and rebuild.
110%. And I'd probably say for me personally is when I started putting myself out on social media. But for those of you who've been sort of like following my journey on social media, like you would see like from my earliest posts and from when I actually started running this business, I really only started doing content about a year ago right now. But I've been in property for nearly 5 years, right? And I've been so anxious to putting out content because normally on more so close family and friends, like I'm a very sort of like, comical person, like to laugh and make jests and make jokes. So the content that people expected of me was meant to be like quite comedic, but it wasn't in line with the version of who I wanted to be. It wasn't in line, and I wasn't trying to say code switch necessarily, but it wasn't in line with the individual that I wanted to become, that was in line with the business that I wanted to create. Like a jokester, which I still am, a funny guy, which I still am, but constantly pushing in content that doesn't relate or isn't in line with my vision was counterproductive. So now having to put content that's in line with my business, that's factual, that's value driven, that supports a lot of the insights of my business, was very, very hard because I was posting content that people didn't expect me to post, right? And the silence was loud. The silence was very loud. And it was hard, when, people weren't liking my stuff, people weren't sharing. But then again, it's the repetitions. And John talks about this a lot. Like, you need to continuously do something over and over and over again. And then now all of a sudden people say, flipping, you came out of nowhere. It's like, no, I've just been...
It always looks like that.
And
you've been putting in the reps behind the scenes.
I've been putting in the reps behind the scenes. So like that's just like sort of like my sort of personal experience when it comes to like, creating like my first iteration by myself. But what about you?
I've had so many, bro. Like, I've obviously been in business since I was 19. I'm 40 now, so I've had several businesses. And I've always found I've had to reinvent, myself every time a business has failed. And I've had a few businesses failed. And I used to take it to heart, but now I realize that it's all a learning curve. Like, if I can take the lessons from each failed business and just use that knowledge to now better what I'm doing, then I'll be okay. But yeah, I just found... Yeah, even like obviously moving into the service accommodation business, that was me reinventing myself. I had never done Airbnb before, never done service accommodation. I had dabbled in property before, but I'd never really, it was a new industry to me. So naturally, I'm like, I feel out of my depth. And I was going to say that when you start to feel out of your depth, that means you are getting uncomfortable. It means you are growing. And I think we naturally think it's a negative feeling, but if we can reverse engineer that feeling of me being uncomfortable, actually, if I'm uncomfortable right now, this means I'm growing. I'm growing because I've never been here before and I'm trying to do something new. And naturally, when you do something new, it does feel a bit overwhelming. It does feel a bit scary, but we need to embrace that feeling. It took me a while to do that, but sometimes you got no other choice. And if you can kind of just push through that feeling that we get where you feel like I'm not good enough or damn, this is hard, or that will help you kind of reinvent yourself and you just come back stronger. And I feel like, reinventing myself has definitely, you know, created a stronger me, and will create a stronger you guys if you can kind of push through that fear of failure. Because when you ask yourself, what are you scared of? Like, what is there to be scared of? We laugh and joke. You're not going to die.
Yeah, literally.
You know, people are scared of what other people think, but it doesn't even matter what other people think, because we alluded in the last episode, no one doesn't care. So, yeah.
No, 110%. I feel like a lot of what John said as well, like sometimes it can be quite confusing. You're not confused, you're evolving, right? And again, it's a part of an unknown. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of discomfort naturally in this journey. But even though sort of, you know, John and I were putting sort of this episode together, we sort of like planned out like a 4-part framework, right? Where we can clearly, or you guys can clearly sort of understand this process and this journey or this framework that we sort of wrapped up or created, shall I say, in terms of how to actually reinvent yourself without losing yourself, you know? And one of the first part of this framework is recognition, right? So I don't know if we can talk to the people a bit about that.
Yeah, sure. I think you need to get to a place where you realize that your current identity is no longer serving you and what you want to do and achieve in life. Like I mentioned it before, you are where you are because of the person that you've become over the years. Now, if you want to level up and go to the next level, you have to recognize that I don't have the necessary skills, which is fine. You can go and learn new skills. I don't necessarily have the best habits to achieve the things that I want to achieve. It's recognizing that this person I am now is not going to take me to the next level, essentially.
110%. And obviously, then naturally after that, the next part of this framework is release. So you need to mourn. You need to sort of, you know, part away that old personality, right? And get rid of that old limb that's no longer serving you that process, right? And you need to get rid of all those sort of old metrics, or like we always say, those vanity metrics, right? That actually aren't serving towards your purpose. So if previously, say for instance, you know, you're all about sort of getting more followers, getting more likes, getting more engagements, and because you're having to do like more viral content, which wasn't necessarily serving your business or putting any money into your bank account, right? You might need to reposition yourself. You might need to focus on more value-driven content that's actually going to bring more natural leads that will actually pay you into your business. So again, parting away with that old personality and then leaving that away and acknowledging that you need to leave that behind to now sort of blossom, as I sort of said previously, to this new person and this new 2.0, 3.0, or how many other times you want to reinvent yourself is massively important.
And I'm just going to add the third kind of part of the framework is reimagine. You know, reimagine, visualize the identity that you're stepping into. Like, what does that version say? What do they do? What habits do they have? Like, what things, or how does this person, this new version of you behave? You know, who are you around? What things are you doing? What are you trying to learn? Really, really kind of just, you know, reimagining the highest version of yourself. We talk about it a lot. You know, what does that version say? How do they behave? How do they act? And yeah, just stepping into that person.
And the last part of this framework is actually rebuilding now. So start small, right? Show up consistently, right? Don't feel ready, just move. You're never ever going to be ready. You know, I mentor quite a few people and it's like, oh, I'm just not ready now, or I just had a baby, or I just got married, or I'm moving. Like, there's always going to be something that's going to fill that void, right? There's never a perfect time, right? Even in property, you always say, don't try to time the market, spend time in the market. Right. And similarly now relating that to business and on this topic of reinventing yourself, just simply move.
100%.
Simply move. Test it out and be consistent and start small. Right. And be consistent and show up every single flipping day. Right. And again, the results aren't going to be overnight, but so long as we're moving the needle just by 1% every single day, we're moving in the right direction.
No, we just got to be honest with ourselves. Like you said, if we can end every day and be like, you know what? I did something that has moved me forward. I'm not who I was yesterday. I can honestly look in the mirror before I go to bed and say, I am a better version than I was yesterday. And if you can do that, you can be pleased with yourself. And I'm just going to add here, like, reinvention doesn't require permission, guys. It requires honesty. So it's about being honest with yourself. Are you on the path or on road to being the person that you want to be to achieve the things that you want to achieve? Are you now fed up with your life or had enough of your life, or feel like internally some changes need to make? It's time to reimagine yourself and start to make some serious moves.
Definitely. And guys, I really hope you can appreciate that 4-step framework. This is something that John and I have used, time and time over again to reinvent ourselves, reinvent our businesses, our process, and it's allowed us to where we are, allowed us to be where we are today. And one thing I always want to say, guys, is like, it's messy. It's super messy. And if you're on this journey now from leaving who you were to now becoming who you want to be, there is genuine power in the in-between. There's genuine power in where you're going to. There's genuine power in your ascension and where you're taking steps to the next level in your business, in your personal life, and whilst you're on this journey of being an entrepreneur.
And guys, I just want to say, obviously, if this episode has touched a nerve, hit something inside you, really made you feel like, you know what, I am ready to kind of make that move, leave a comment. Tell us. Let us know what you're thinking. What part of yourself are you ready to outgrow? There's a part of all of us internally that we can outgrow. And it's about you finding that part within yourself and trying to outgrow yourself, trying to outgrow that part of you that has become stagnant, is no longer, trying to level up and improve. And I say it time and time again. If you're not evolving and growing in an ever-evolving world, you become stagnant, you become dormant, and you get left behind. And we want to keep moving. We want to cliche unplug to become the highest version of ourselves.
There we go. But guys, I really hope you appreciated this episode. But this, and if you're joining us for the first time, this is the part of the show or segment called Plug Bites. And this is where John and I talk about, a saying, a verse, a quote that, moved us, that touched us, that we thought that we want to share with you that often is in relation or not into this particular topic. Right?
Cool.
I've got something here that I want to sort of share. And it says, you weren't meant to stay in one season, you were built to evolve, right? And this sort of hits home into everything we're talking about when it comes to reinvention. If you generally think this one iteration of yourself, this one version of yourself from infancy all the way to prime, to adult, to maturity is who you're going to be, it's not. There will be an essence of you, don't get me wrong, whether it be your personality or certain characteristics or traits about you that will remain consistent, but you're naturally going to evolve. Almost like children to teens to adults to the elderly, right? And naturally within your journey as an entrepreneur, you will have many, many evolves. You will have many, many different versions. And you can be able to look back and see what was good, what was not so good, and what you can improve on. So similarly as well, guys, so make sure you're always evolving, making sure you're always looking to see how you can always make sure you're the best. Making sure you're always looking to see how you can be the best and highest version of yourself, as always.
Love that. My plug bite is the version of you that's stuck can't take you where you're going. Perfect. So quite simply, and I've been here before where I want to do this and I want to achieve that, but I understand it's like I need a rebirthing of me. I need to be born again, to start again, to get rid of all negative habits, traits, characteristics, learn new skills, change my mindset. Because guys, the version of you that's stuck can't take you to where you're going. So you're not going to achieve the things that deep down you know you can achieve. We all have a level of like just desire. And, we have the ability, but we just never allow ourselves to bring it out and work on ourselves. So we have to rebirth, develop some skills, change our mindsets, develop habits, go again and be reborn, man.
There we go. But guys, I really, really hope you appreciated this episode. Like, it was very, very thoughtful and intentional from us. And if you're on this journey of reinventing yourself, and whether you're on 2.0, 3.0, or 50.0, there's always a clear outline structure that we've developed and we've catered for you guys in terms of how to do so. Guys, so please, as always, make sure you like, subscribe, make sure you tell a friend, tell your mom, tell your dad, tell his mistress.
Jeez.
And as always, guys, love.
Elevate.